A poor rancher named Silas lived a simple life, tending to his small patch of land and a few aging animals. His days were long, his means were modest, but his heart was kind. One scorching afternoon, while checking his fences on the far edge of his property, he noticed something unusual. Deep within a grove of trees, a massive, magnificent black stallion stood unnaturally still. Silas approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. This was no ordinary horse. It was a Frisian, a breed known for its majestic build and flowing mane, a creature of fairy tales, not of his humble ranch. As he got closer, a grim sight met his eyes. A heavy iron chain was wrapped around the stallion's powerful neck, tethering it cruelly to an old oak tree. The horse was distressed, its coat matted with sweat and dirt, its eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Who would do such a thing? The chain was so tight it had rubbed the skin raw. The horse had no access to water and had eaten all the grass within its reach. It was a picture of neglect and despair. Silas's gentle nature couldn't bear to see any animal suffer. He spoke to the horse in a low, soothing voice, trying to calm its nerves. As he examined the chain, he noticed a small, weathered leather pouch tied to it. With trembling hands, he untied the pouch and opened it. Inside was a folded, yellowed piece of paper. A note. He unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, almost desperate. It read, "His name is Goliath. Please take care of him. I cannot." "Forgive me." Silas was stunned. The note offered no explanation, just a desperate plea. He looked from the note to the horse, whose dark, intelligent eyes seemed to be pleading with him. Goliath, the name fit him perfectly. He was a giant, a beautiful beast brought low by some unknown tragedy. Silas knew he couldn't leave him there. But how could a poor rancher like him afford to care for such a magnificent animal? A Frisian stallion was worth a fortune, and its upkeep would be immense. His own resources were stretched thin as it was. Yet, looking into Goliath's eyes, he saw a reflection of his own loneliness. He made a decision. He would help, no matter the cost. Finding the key to the heavy lock was impossible, so Silas rushed back to his barn, grabbing the heaviest bolt cutters he owned. The old tools struggled against the thick iron, but with gritted teeth and all his strength, he finally snapped the chain. The sound echoed through the quiet woods, and Goliath startled, pulling back. Silas spoke softly. "Easy, boy. You're free now." He gently led the stallion away from the tree. The horse was weak and stumbled, but he leaned against Silas for support, a sign of trust that touched the old rancher's heart. He led Goliath back to his barn, into the cleanest stall he had. He brought fresh water, which the horse drank thirstily, and a bucket of the best oats he had saved. Over the next few weeks, a deep bond formed between the man and the horse. Silas spent every spare moment with Goliath, grooming his tangled mane until it shone like black silk, tending to the wounds on his neck, and talking to him for hours. Goliath, in return, transformed. The fear in his eyes was replaced by a gentle affection. He would nuzzle Silas's shoulder and follow him around the ranch like a loyal dog. The presence of the magnificent stallion brought a new life to the small farm. Silas, who had often felt the weight of his solitary life, now had a companion. He felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He even started fixing up his old barn, making it a more fitting home for his new friend. Word of the mysterious black stallion spread through the small rural community. People would drive by Silas's ranch, slowing down to catch a glimpse of the incredible horse. Some were curious, others were envious. One day, a fancy car pulled up the dusty track to Silas's farmhouse. A well-dressed man stepped out, his eyes immediately locking on Goliath, who was grazing peacefully in the pasture. The man introduced himself as Mr. Sterling, a wealthy horse breeder from the city. He said he'd heard rumors of a prize-winning Frisian in the area and had to see for himself. He offered Silas a staggering amount of money for Goliath, more money than Silas had ever seen in his life. It was enough to solve all his financial problems, fix his entire ranch, and live comfortably for the rest of his days. Silas looked at Mr. Sterling, then at Goliath. The horse had stopped grazing and was watching him, his ears pricked forward. Silas remembered the desperate note, the feeling of the cold chain, and the trust in Goliath's eyes when he was finally freed. He thought of the quiet companionship they shared, the way the horse would rest his head on his shoulder. This wasn't just an animal, this was his friend, his family. The money was tempting, a lifeline he desperately needed, but selling Goliath felt like a betrayal. He politely turned down the offer. Mr. Sterling was shocked, then annoyed. He doubled his offer, then tripled it, unable to comprehend why a poor rancher would refuse such a fortune. But Silas's mind was made up. Goliath was not for sale. A few days later, another visitor arrived. This time, it was an older woman, her face etched with worry. She drove a modest, older car and looked nervously at the farmhouse before getting out. When she saw Goliath, tears welled up in her eyes. She approached Silas, her voice trembling. She introduced herself as Eleanor as she began to tell her story. Her husband, a passionate horseman, had raised Goliath from a foal. He had been his pride and joy. But her husband had fallen gravely ill, and the medical bills had piled up, bankrupting them. They were about to lose their home. In a moment of sheer desperation, her husband, knowing he could no longer care for his beloved horse, had chained Goliath in the woods, hoping a kind soul would find him. The note was his final, heartbreaking act. Eleanor explained that her husband's health had taken a turn for the worse, and his dying wish was to see Goliath one last time. She wasn't there to take the horse back. She knew she couldn't afford to keep him. She just wanted her husband to have a final goodbye. Silas's heart ached for her. He understood the pain of losing a loved one and the deep connection they had with their animals. He immediately agreed. He loaded Goliath into a borrowed trailer and drove with Eleanor to a small, modest house several hours away. When they arrived, Eleanor's husband, frail and bedridden, was brought out onto the porch. His eyes lit up when he saw Goliath. The reunion was incredibly emotional. The man wept, stroking Goliath's face and whispering his name. Goliath, in turn, was gentle and calm, nuzzling his former owner as if he understood everything. Silas watched from a distance, his own eyes misty. In that moment he knew he had made the right decision. This bond was something money could never buy. After a long, heartfelt goodbye, the man looked at Silas with immense gratitude. He thanked him for his kindness, for saving his horse, and for giving him this final moment of peace. The man passed away peacefully 2 days later. Silas returned to his ranch with Goliath, his heart full. A week later, he received a letter from a lawyer. Eleanor's husband had amended his will just before he passed. He had a life insurance policy that he had left entirely to the kind stranger who had cared for his horse. It wasn't a massive fortune like the one Mr. Sterling had offered, but it was enough for Silas to secure his ranch, buy more land, and ensure that he and Goliath would live comfortably for the rest of their days. The letter also contained a personal note from Eleanor, thanking Silas for his compassion and telling him that her husband had found peace knowing Goliath was in loving hands. Silas used the money wisely, improving his ranch and even starting a small rescue for other neglected animals. He and Goliath became local legends, a testament to the fact that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in kindness, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his horse. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting content.